People a minute to get in here. Hi, June. Hi, Heather. I am outside of the Hotel de Ville. See down the street. It's really loud because they still have the giant Olympic little village set up here that'll go through the Paralympics that start this week. I'm kind of on the, I want to kind of show you this other corner here real quick, but it's really loud in the music they're playing. I don't know if it's just a group of random children getting up on the stage and singing or rapping, but it's a horrific. So today we're gonna get jump right in here because the streets are packed. Today is the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Paris. It started on the 19th of August and kind of goes through tomorrow, but today was kind of the end. Today was the final triumphant moment. So I'm going to take you through a few places from here across the island into the left bank and show you some, and then also tell you a few little stories. So right here on the corner of the Hotel de Ville, of course, is the main mayor's office of the city of Paris. And on the 19th of August, the resistance leader, Colonel Rotongi, had come in and kind of taken it over and protected it. And they kept the Germans away from it coming in. On August 21st, the Germans came rolling down the Rue de Rivoli right behind me with a tank and started firing on the building. And you can still see those markers left here. But look at who those markers are under. Not only it's just one of my favorites, Viollet-le-Duc, but we have a marker here on the wall, and these are all over the city. There's over 700 plaques dedicated just to World War II, and that pretty much just the liberation of Paris, which is pretty horrific because that also means just as many of those, more so, are dedicated to people that lost their lives on those spots, and I'll show you a few of them today. But you can see the reminders here on the building. Look at that huge chunk taken out of the corner there, where you can see right at the edge of the cloud. I'll be really excited when all this Olympic stuff comes off of the buildings so we can see things. But I'm going to take you on the back side because it's just so loud back here on the front side. And it's really difficult to get around because it's mostly all blocked off. But they have a great kind of photo exhibit installed here about a lot of the people working that worked on the different venues for the Olympics, which that's what you gotta love about Paris, especially, how they're doing that with Notre Dame, which I talk about all the time. This is normally the kind of City of Paris tourist office. I don't know if it's going to come back afterwards, but this is a really great resource to get tickets if you want to get your tickets for a bunch of places at once. Now that most of them have to have a time ticket, you can get some here, but not all of them. But it's also a great place to get little brochures, and they also sell a bunch of nicer Paris keepsakes. So if you go along the wall here, you can see more, especially here. Do you see up there, just to the right of both of those windows, tons of markings. There's 338 statues on the outside of this building. One day, we'll spend 3 months of Sundays, and I'll share them all with you when we can see them all yet again. We'll walk around the back of it. It is definitely busier during the Olympics. It was deathly quiet in the city. Restaurant owners are saying that it was busier during COVID, if that tells you anything. I had daily dozens of people asking me how it was going here because you were watching the Olympics and could see how busy it was. And I would have to say, it's not at all. It's completely empty unless you were around a venue. And even then, it was pretty wasn't too bad. I went to a few Olympic events, and they were really well organized and weren't too bad at all. So on during the liberation, about 10 days before it all started, there was a strike. Go figure, it is France after all. The railroad workers went on strike, followed by postal workers, followed by metro workers, and then eventually by the police. So the police were tired of Saint Gervais. The police were really tired of the Vichy government. They were tired um, of just it'd been 4 years, just tired of everything. So they went on strike. And August 19th is when the police decided, with the resistance, to stand up, and 2,000 of them stormed in to the prefecture. It's over across from Notre Dame, where we're going to head to. Went in there, got up to the top of the building, hoisted the French flag once again. And I want you, is it open on the other side? So they're doing a bunch of special events the last few days in Paris up until today. And I went to one this morning that was really amazing. But this is this little park on the back, and it was used to be called kind of the it's a mayor's like personal little garden here. But this one is dedicated to the combatants of that helped with the second battalion of the French army, and they were mostly made of Spanish, lots of Spanish soldiers, and so they named this little park after them. And on the 24th, you can see there, on the 24th of August 1944, they arrived here in front of Hotel de Ville with General Leclerc's army, and the end was nigh. It feels like the last few days, even though yesterday got to be about 86, but it dropped about 10 degrees in 2 hours. And rained last night for a bit, but it definitely has that feeling of fall in the air, and it's kind of fantastic. Sunny, beautiful today, but it's not horrendous being in the sun. The balconies, for probably the first time in over a month, are actually open. Been kind of quiet all summer. Let's see. When I walked by here earlier, this was not open. So they put flowers here today. You could pop in here really quickly. I didn't want to go on the other side and not be able to get through. So you could see the mayor's office. Her office is right up here. They used to have chickens in here, which scared me to death one time when I came in here because I heard the rustling and I thought it was a rat. You could see. But her office is just right up here, right above us. I had gone in there a few times during the special Patron weekend. So August 19th, when this all went down, the fighting began. The next day, on August 20th, de Gaulle had come over from England a few days prior to that, and he decided to go out to Normandy to talk to the American President Eisenhower to convince him to come to Paris. Eisenhower had no intention of coming to Paris, They were going to head to the outskirts and move on from there. They were not going to come to Paris. And as the French forces and the police garnered together, they kind of weren't left with a choice. They had to come. So it was the French resistance that pushed for the Americans to come because they were taking over the streets and it wasn't going to look so good if they didn't also come over. So they all came over, and it was there was still 17,000 Germans left here in the city, but there was 20,000 of the French resistance plus citizens that gathered together, 20,000 police. Then there was 16,000 soldiers of Leclerc from his second division, and then 14,000 American soldiers that came through. So a huge mass majority of the people in the city during the liberation of Paris fighting for the city were the French. The Germans that were still here, the Germans was also made up of a bunch of militia members. And the militia members included French people that were supportive of the Vichy government. They were also other people. There was Japanese, there was people from all over Europe, and this militia would be plain clothes and they would be up on the rooftops of Paris. Just a little peek of the river. You know, it's a lot nicer when I came out yesterday. I was the only one here about 7:30 in the morning. Oh, how pretty. So on August 20th, when they got them to stop, they also were able to convince Toilets to have a ceasefire that Nordling, who was a Swedish ambassador, worked on him with. But the message didn't get out very far. And the Germans, a lot of the German soldiers refused to agree to it. And it was back then, I mean, this is 80 years ago. So you couldn't just send out a, text message. You couldn't send a WhatsApp message saying, hey guys, stand down. So it was, it wasn't taken very well. There were people that were French resistance fighters that went through the city in cars that they painted FFI on it and drove through the city trying to say with a white flag and saying, this is, there's a, ceasefire, but the Germans actually were just fighting and pointing their rifles at them and shooting, and quite a few of them died. This is here, and this is the artist C215. And he and I have had quite a few messages back and forth. I'm going to one of these days go out to his studio because he just did something a couple of months ago, did one of these with Hemingway on it. So he's invited me out to his studio. And I messaged him the other day to see if there was a map. So he does these fantastic stencils. He did these. This one's, I think, 5 years old. And there's not a lot of these of the liberation that I could find within this area. There's a lot of them in the 14th that he did 2 years ago. But this was a French officer, Joseph Auroux. And I love this. And I tried to find some stuff about him, but I couldn't really find anything about him. But I love these. I love his work. He does these amazing stencils. He does them he does a lot of themes in the Marais. He has one about that are all people that used to live in the Marais, like Madame Sévigné and Ninon de Locros. I'll give you a brief little peeky at Notre Dame, but we'll do another video because we are coming up to a huge milestone and it's getting so close to being opened. And make sure if you don't follow me on Instagram, make sure you do just to see my stories. Because this week I was here 4 different mornings, and just on one little part of the outside of the cathedral, every time I came up here, more and more was visible. as they're taking the scaffolding down. So here on the island, of course, we have Notre Dame, Hotel Dieu, but we have the prefecture. So the prefecture is where it was on the 19th of August that they all got together. The 2,000 policemen pushed their way back in and took it over. And that's really where the Germans realized there wasn't a lot they could still do because they were being outnumbered. But because the police had gone on strike, it also was a time where there was, I just read a story today in the French newspaper of a gentleman that's 93 years old from a Jewish family where they hid during the war the entire time in Bellevue. And once the police went on strike, they were able to really walk around the streets almost completely free because in that area the Germans really weren't ever out there so far. And there was no police to stop them and ask for papers. There she is. Still working on the North Tower. The bells aren't back yet. Last night at 9 p.m., all of the bells in the churches of Paris rang, except for Notre Dame. The only bells in there are the two big ones in the South Tower, Emmanuel and Marie. Edith is here. Edith Piaf. There's more markings. This is all been reopened. The fence used to be pretty much right where I'm standing, and they've pushed it back and opened a lot more of the space up in the last couple weeks. The forecourt they said was supposed to be open this summer, though we technically have a month left of summer, till September 20th. So there could be, when it comes to timelines, it's not something really sell out here. But here, the prefecture in the front. So this is really the key moments and the key beginning of the liberation was right here. And you can see over here on the building, I'll show you, we'll get a little closer. The Hotel Dieu here. But even when the ceasefire was called, even after the 25th, there was still gunfight and the Germans firing onto civilians and everyone else. Here she is. So on August 24th, General Leclerc, there was no way to get news to the people because the Germans controlled the phone lines. So General Leclerc had an airplane fly over Paris, and they dropped notes. And one of them was dropped right here in the middle of the forecourt, where there was some police, a bunch of French police, and it said, "Hold on, we're on our way." And that was about 5 p.m. at night. And at 9 p.m., the 2nd Battalion of the French army came rolling into Paris. Behind them were the Allies, a little ways behind them. And they came in, and that was pretty much the beginning of the end. And on August 25th, which is 80 years ago, exactly today, that is when de Gaulle came into the city. He did this very famous speech in front of the Hotel de Ville. And on August 26th, he started at the Arc de Triomphe, walked down the Champs-Élysées. They had just relit the flame of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier that had been out during the war. relit the flame, and then marched with Leclerc and everybody else down the Champs-Élysées until they got to the end. He got into a car. They came down the Rue de Rivoli, went to Hotel de Ville again, and then he came in here to Notre Dame, where they did, where on his way as he was walking in here, they were firing at him. So the Germans were still on the rooftops because they were able to control them on the street. They were able to control where they were going, but they could not control really what was happening on the rooftop. And so as he's like technically walking right exactly where we are right now, with everybody next to him, the Germans were firing down, and he stood very tall and just kept walking. He walked into Notre Dame where there were shooters up above in Notre Dame firing down while people were in the church, and nothing phased de Gaulle. He just walked in, and the people were singing where they said "Thank them," and then "Magnificent," and there was no electricity in there, so there was no organ, and it was just everybody's, hundreds of people in the church and their voices singing out with de Gaulle in the church the whole time. Nobody was injured in there as well, but outside during those 7 days, more than 800 civilians died, and more than 700 French resistance fighters were killed just in those 7 days alone here in the city. But the bells the night before, it was 10:10 p.m. on the 24th, and that is when the bells started to ring. And it was first Notre Dame, and then it was it's just started each one after another. Every church started the bells started to ring out, and it was pretty amazing. I found this website that it's just somebody, it's more of a blog, I guess, and it's this gentleman. It's all in French, but he is amassing stories of some of them of people that lived through that, and then a lot of them are, their children or grandchildren. And there were some amazing, amazing stories in there, and I will link them all in my newsletter this week. But and I've also found one that has a whole bunch of, it'll tell you where some of the plaques are, not all of them, but you could go through if there was somebody, if you knew somebody, or if you had family, you want to put their last name in there. It'll tell you where their plaque is. It's not 100% of every plaque in the city, but it's pretty amazing. But just think of what different things Notre Dame has seen in over 850 years between the the revolution, the liberation, Napoleon's coronation, everything. It's pretty good. Let's walk over here to the prefecture. Yesterday, when I came by early in the morning, there was a lot of the army, military men that walked through the streets, um, mostly since the terrorist attack of 2015, but they are really, there's a lot of them in the city because of the Olympics. Still some now, but not as many. But I guess that they're going to have about 30,000 or 20,000. We have 30,000 for the Olympics, and they'll have 20,000 for the Paralympics. So that begins Wednesday night. I see all you guys sending lots of messages. Thank you. I'll look at those. We'll get to a good spot. But you can see here's the 80th anniversary on the 19th of August here at the prefecture. And you have right here, there's a kind of plaques. I was hoping maybe they were going to add one this sometime for the 80th, but you have this really beautiful sculpture here that they added 1994 for the 50th by Claude Richard. And you can see the emblem on there, and then Marianne. And then here, the plaque under here for the 50th anniversary. But up above, I'm going to keep this up because I don't want them to get mad. But you can see the bullet holes there. Bonjour. You can see a lot of the bullet holes on the building. And here's the marker for the 70th of Francois Hollande. I have there's the little duet. I have mine on today. I forgot to wear it this morning. I'll tell you guys what I did this morning. It was pretty amazing in a minute. But I want to show you this other side where this other plaque is. B. But if you guys have not seen the movie, is Paris Burning. It was a movie done in 1966, and it's a lot of French actors, but also you have American actors like Kirk Douglas, Orson Welles, and you can find it on Apple TV. You can rent it on there. And I just went to a exhibit all about it at the Liberation Museum, or the Liberation Museum, and it was really fantastic. And definitely check out that movie because it's a mix of course, scenes they shot for the movie, but it does have a few actual archival images. So it's a little hard to see this one, but this one says that it was on the 24th of August, 1944, that the 2nd Division Battalion, General Leclerc, and this is when he said, "Hold on, we are on our way. We are arriving." And I love that they put flowers in here in all of these plaques today around the city. But you can see all the way up here. This really was kind of the major moment, major place. There she is. Look at her. Look at that blue sky. It's gorgeous. So here on this whole area where we are, because this was such a pivotal place, this is also the center of the blockade that they created. So on August 21st, the first barricades were created, and there was over 600 of them that they built in the city, and they went around the city. Here in the center specifically, from the square Rene Viviani, which is just right on the other side. This is kind of right, that little square on the other side of Shakespeare and Company. It went from there over to the right bank, to the Hotel de Ville, all the way down to Place du Châtelet, came back over here and kind of went over just right past the Fontaine Saint Michel, which is where we're going to walk to. And that was kind of the perimeter. And so they had called out to everybody that day to come help. And they said, get anything. They were chopping down trees, they were pulling up cobblestones, using furnitures, using cars, using everything they possibly can to make this huge perimeter around here to stop the Germans so they couldn't get through. Sometimes the Germans would pretend that they were coming through and they had a white flag and said, "Oh, no, we're fine." And then they'd go through and start shooting everybody. And there's a plaque down here of a gentleman I'll tell you about that. That's exactly what happened to him. But this was an area that this was kind of the first stronghold, which is also kind of ironic because the origins and the original Paris is right here as well. So right here on the island, the Ile de la Cité, going back quite a long time ago to the before the Middle Ages, and then all the way up to 1944. This really was the most important center of the city to protect and try to, and then go out from here and continue to grow. And so you do still have a whole lot of plaques. The plaques for the different markers, but mostly because of the people that were killed by the Germans. A majority of them from the 4th to the 7th. So it's from here, from the island, over the 5th, the 6th, and then some over to the 7th. But a majority of the ones, huge concentration you're going to have of those, is going to be in here. There was a few I saw yesterday that I wanted to share with you today, but yesterday it was great at 7 in the morning because they were inside of a wall on a cafe terrace, and it's going to be too difficult to get to those today. But I already have plans for next year for the 81st. Good. Just imagining yesterday when I was walking, if you saw my Instagram stories, because I had just also watched again his Paris Burning. And as I was walking here, and it was completely quiet yesterday morning, There's no noise, no cars. It was just a few police on the street. In my mind, everything literally is black and white, like it was in the movie. And I felt like I put myself back in the movie, and that's what I was seeing. So I actually made some of the stories on Instagram in black and white, like when I have some pictures of the army guys with their guns. But here on the corner, up here, you also have the courthouse. And on the courthouse, there's also bullet holes on there, but the big ones that were there are kind of covered by a big banner. It's really easy and wonderful early in the morning to be able to, if you want to go out and explore these things. I think I might even start doing some tours early in the morning, like 7 a.m. in the morning in the city. If people really want to find some of the really neat nooks and crannies, I'll meet you at 7 in the morning and do a tour, because you really could just take your time. You could stop in the middle of the street and just stop on a corner and stare up at a building for 15 minutes without worrying about everybody around you. I'm an early bird, so I love it. Oh my gosh, I thought that little branch was a rat for a second. I did see a mouse in the window of a restaurant yesterday morning. I won't mention the restaurant along the quay, but I did see one in the window. Mental note not to go back. So you can see here, just up the first window on the first floor, to the left and right of it, there's some more bullet holes. And you have some more down on this side. But I really love how Paris leaves all of those as reminders. Most of the time, they don't put anything on there saying what it was, except for on the back of the Théâtre de l'Odéon. There is a sign engraved into the building. And then, of course, on the former Ministry of Arms, there's also one, but that was from World War One. Give you a little glimpse. I heard an airplane. So let me tell you what was really not enjoyable during the Olympics, because I live so close to the water. The helicopters every day, starting at like 6:30 in the morning. Again, I'm an early riser, so not a big deal. But all day, all evening, helicopters, and I'm sure they're going to start again. But you're normally not able to fly over the airspace of Paris, so it is very bizarre when you hear it. So here we are at the Fontaine Saint Michel. So here, this is where part of the barricade wall went right over there, right through. So you have a lot of markers. Oh, I love the gentleman taking the tree on his bike. Taking So they had the barricades, and so the two chimeras that are over on the fountain, that you see, the two ones spitting the water, those underneath it, the plaques, there's plaques on there saying that they are for the resistance fighters, that from August, those days in August, the 19th to the 25th to the 50, after 50 months of occupation. And so you see those under there, and they do actually have bullet holes in the wings of those chimeras. But I love that fountain. It was done, it finished in 1860 by Gabriel Daviau. And Daviau also did a lot of the furniture, the green furniture, we call it, around the city. He also this is the wonderful example of a fountain placed against a wall, but he also did another one. He is the one that helped move the Fontaine de Médicis in the Luxembourg, and then put the hidden fountain on the back of Leda and the Swan. But he had created this. You also have the reliefs that are up there between the different statues of the allegories of the virtues. And those were all done by a woman named Claude Vignon, who in the 19th century wasn't very often that you had a woman. And so she went by the name of Claude Vignon because it sounded like a male name. I need to do a podcast episode about her for sure. Okay, we're going to try to get through all of these people here. I would have recorded this earlier this week, but I did not have time. So it's a little easier to do. I love doing this when there's nobody on the streets. But I'm going to take you over here to show you a plaque that's actually very pretty. So this is 2 weeks ago. This was not at all what the city looked like. I could be dancing naked in the middle of the street and nobody would have seen me 2 weeks ago. That would not happen, by the way, but it was not too busy. So we'll see what happens. It's a lot busier um, in the city this week already for the tourism business, which is great because the Olympics killed the tourism business. And as I was saying earlier, restaurants were saying it was busier during COVID, which is pretty too bad. I'm going to show you a little marker down here on the side of the building. Oh, goody, we have a flowers there. So George, right there. George was captured. Look at that. Look at that color. Oh, perfect. George had been captured by the Germans. He had been taken to Drancy. He somehow escaped, luckily. He came back and he was in Paris, where for 2 years he hid. And he came out to help fight against them. He had worked for the resistance underground, and he came out to fight for him. And on the 19th of August, he was here when a German car came through, tried to say that they were peaceful, they weren't going to do anything. The truck was hit. It was a lorry. It was hit. It went over. He tried to go and take the boxes of guns and ammunition, and in the process, the Germans killed him right here. So these plaques are put in place where they died. So he probably just died right off into the road. But I love this plaque with the French flags on it. I really do love that the city comes around and puts flowers in every single one of these. But he was just 28 years old. He was one of the stories that I read on that really fantastic episode or website I found as well. I'm gonna walk down the K a little bit, and I'll tell you another little story that happened on that day, away from the loud traffic a bit. Tomorrow, again, make sure you follow my Instagram, and maybe I'll even try it. Maybe I'll even do it and upload it here onto YouTube. But I'm going to do a little walk around the Champs-Elysees and then tell you a little bit about what happened with the man that likes to say that he saved Paris, Charlotte, who was supposed to. He was given the order by Hitler to blow it up. He said he doesn't want the city falling into enemy hands, and that he would um, blow it up. And so he refused to do it because partly he'd only been in Paris for a few weeks, and he had really come to love it and thought it was such a beautiful city. But he also realized there wasn't much they could do. The forces were already so low that the Germans had in his only amount of time. He'd been talking to the Swedish um, Bro Nordling, and he Nordling was really kind of brokering a great deal with him and convinced him not to do it. It's not very often that you get to commend a Nazi, but he also might not be 100% as virtuous as he likes to say, and I'll make a little video about that tomorrow. But we're gonna walk up here around the corner. It was one of these restaurants over here, but one of the ones I passed, but I saw the mice in the window. I'm sure that that's a common thing in many places. I was at a very, very popular bar that I actually really like near the opera with some clients, and we saw a little mouse run through. And I spent the entire time with my feet up on the table legs. It's pretty common around here, but still not going there. So we are now on the Rue de Grand Augustin, and this is a street that plays prominently in the story of Louis the 13th. If you look straight ahead, you'll see Louis the 13th, because this is where there was a convent. He was here when his father, on May 14th, 16. I keep losing you guys, so hopefully this doesn't happen. But right here, number 7, is where Pablo Picasso lived during the occupation of Paris. This is where he also painted Guernica. And it was on this day that a certain writer named Ernest Hemingway came by to say hi to his old friend Pablo. And the woman, the housekeeper, said, "Oh, he's not here." And they said, "Do you want to?" He said, "She's like for him a gift," because she was used to people coming by and always leaving him gifts. And so Hemingway was like, "Well, I don't know what I have." So goes back out to his car that he had liberated and pulled out a box of grenades and left them here, just live grenades. Left them here for Picasso. He didn't see him. But this was later in the day. Before that, on August 25th, exactly 80 years ago today, when he came into Paris, he had been outside of Paris, about 30 miles outside of Paris at Rambouillet, and he had come in with Leclerc and the Allied forces, and he came into Paris, and he got here, and he actually tried to get from Leclerc. He was said, "Hey, I need some guys, and I need some guns, and we're gonna go over to the Ritz and we're going to get it back from the Germans." And Leclerc basically told him to buzz off. And so he left and he thought, fine, I'll do it myself. So he had took his own guys that he had and he went to the Ritz. And he pulls up to the Ritz and he says, "Where are they? I'm here for the Germans." And they were like, "Monsieur Hemingway, the Germans are gone." And he's like, "Oh," and he's like, "Well, we'll come in for a drink." She's like, "But you can't bring your machine guns." So they went back out, left him in the car, came back in, went to the bar, which was the Ritz bar, which is now a pastry shop. But he went into the Ritz bar and they ordered the 51 martinis. But it was the 51 martinis they ordered as a group of about 17 men. I just got this special issue of Le Parisien magazine that they do. It was all about the liberation. It was really great. It had a whole one-page article about it and also about how it was Hemingway that drank all those. The Ritz even goes with the story that it was only Hemingway, but if you think about it, you'd literally die if you drank 51 martinis in one sitting. So I really wish that maybe someday they'll get the story right, but I guess it sounds a little bit more exciting if you drank them yourself. Um, but prior to that,
So he didn't really liberate the Ritz. He did not liberate the Brasserie Libre, which is another one they'd say he liberated, but he did liberate Odeon. So he had come in, and one of the first places he went when he came in, because they came into the gate on the south of the city, and he went straight to Rue de l'Odeon, and he went to see his old friend Sylvia Beach at 18 Rue de l'Odeon, and he went driving through the street and screamed her name, and she screamed back, Hemingway, Hemingway. She came down on the street, and then he brought her back. He went back upstairs, and when she was there, she said, "What can I get for you? What do you need?" And he just wanted a bar of soap. And then he said, "What can I do for you?" And she's like, "They're still firing. They're still on the rooftops." And so he went, got some of the guys and the guns, and went back up on the roof and started firing. And then it was silent. And so he liberated Odeon. But these fighters on the roof, these are the militia. Um, some German officers, but mostly it was that militia um, that he did. But I made a little video the other day because my very good friend lives in that building just 2 floors above where she used to live. And so I made you a little video that I'll post later on as well. But he had come down here as well and tried to get rid of grenades. He later, in October, was almost court-martialed because he was a reporter for Collier, and he had come into Paris. He'd kind of screwed over his third wife, Martha Gellhorn, my favorite of the wives. Kind of screwed her over, taking kind of her job, and he was not allowed to have weapons and try to kill people, and he just decided to because he was Hemingway, and he thought he could do whatever he wanted. So he was almost court-martialed for the action. We have this is a school, so you have one of the plaques here from 1942, 1944. The Jewish deportees that were victims, innocent victims of the Nazi barbarism. Heartbreaking. Sometimes those plaques actually have all of the children's, each of their names. But this morning, I went to the church of Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois because today they had a mass for dedicated to the liberation, and specifically that Second Army Battalion of Leclerc, and it was pretty fantastic. And the Archbishop was there, but it had military members, and then it had one little guy that had fought in the liberation in Paris 80 years ago. And he walked in, and as soon as I saw him, I started crying. And then when he walked out, he walked past me, and I got a quick picture of him because his chest was covered. He was wearing just a blazer, and he had all of these little awards on him. And I cried again when I saw him. I just wish I could just go up and kiss the cute little fella. But it was pretty amazing to see that normally. And that was because that was also in honor of the 80th anniversary of that Mass with de Gaulle in Notre Dame, which this would have been done in Notre Dame. So next year we'll see it hopefully in Notre Dame itself. And I'll be right there to see it all. And I really hope my cute little fella is there again. He was walking, so that's good. So hopefully, but that was really exciting to go. Today, right now, there is a parade starting up and going to the where the Liberation Museum is there at the Place d'Enfer. So it's going up through there and ending there. And so you probably might be able to find it. If I find it online to reshare, I'll put that in my newsletter for this week. So make sure you guys subscribe to my newsletter, ClaudineHemingway.com. It'll pop up a little box. You could enter your email address to subscribe to it. And so make sure you do that. And tomorrow on the podcast, we're doing one about some of those fun Hemingway things during the liberation, some other myths about him. And then if you're coming to Paris anytime soon, reach out to me on my website or leave a message or leave a comment on YouTube and with your email, and I will send you an email if you want to do a tour All my tours are private and customized, and I could do a tour of just about anything you want in the city. So reach out, and if you need any help planning your Paris trip, let me know as well. Oh, I should look at the comments real quick to see if there's anything you want me, if I can answer anything. I can hardly see these things, they're so tiny. Oh, so good to see so many of you here. Ellen, you're in disguise as your son. So cute. Oh, hey, Reg. Yeah, she's pretty. See, Notre Dame is pretty great. And again, that's just one of those things. If you go by early in the morning, it is just, you're all by yourself and you could just walk around and like I could hear them banging and taking apart the scaffolding. Yesterday, it was really, really windy. So they didn't start. I was there before 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, but make sure, yeah, if you guys want to see, see that movie, you really should see that. Watch it this week. The Is Paris Burning is it's really great, and I love it because you have um, Alain Delon who just passed away. He's in it. Paul Belmont's, what's the guy's name? The guy that was in Psycho. Although I can't think, the guy he played the psycho. Um, he was in it, and it's a scene, and he's this American, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, we're going to Paris on the day of the liberation." He's like, "We're going to Paris," and so they're in this little gunfight, and then he and this Frenchman pop into this little cafe, and they have. He's like, "We need a drink, whatever you have," and a Frenchman in a Jeep pulls up, and he's like, "Hey guys, hey, there's a thing going on right now," and they're in there having a drink, and then he starts to walk out and says, "That's exactly what I imagined it to be like in Paris, in a small cafe with red check tablecloths." And then he gets shot, which was so sad. But that was the truth of it. But I was so sweet too, because I was like, oh, well, he wanted, as I'm starting to lose, it's starting to lose the signal. But thank you guys so much for being here. And again, make sure you follow me on Instagram so you can see all the updates in my stories. And I'll have a few more liberation stories, sharing one that I don't think many people know at all. And I really was hoping to go into this place tomorrow, but it's going to be closed because of getting ready for the Paralympics on Wednesday. But I'm going to share the story anyway. So make sure you guys follow me, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge. And I will see you guys later. Thank you all so much.